Today we're going to dive into something pretty amazing. It's the deep and honestly often overlooked connection between our breath, our body, and our mind. And what we're going to find is that these aren't three separate things at all. Nope, they're one single powerful inner world, and you have way more control over it than you probably think.
But seriously, just for a second, think about it. When was the last time you actually paid attention to your breathing? I mean, besides when you're out of breath from a workout, or maybe in a moment of panic. For pretty much all of us, it's just there, right? Kind of like the automatic background noise of being alive.
But what if I told you that this completely automatic process holds the key to managing your stress, your health, and get this, even the actual physical structure of your face? It turns out this simple, constant act is one of the most powerful tools you have. For real.
Okay, so let's start right there with the breath itself. And you should know this isn't some new age idea. This is where ancient wisdom and modern science are actually starting to shake hands.
You see, for thousands of years, practices like yoga have had these very specific breathing techniques called pranayama. And the core belief has always been pretty simple. If you can control your breath, you can influence your mind and your body. You can literally breathe your way to a calmer, more focused state.
So of course, science is now catching up and putting these ancient claims to the test, and they did it in a big way. Researchers took a look at a whole bunch of studies, 50 of them to be exact. This chart here kind of shows you their process. They sifted through everything, checked for quality, and basically boiled it all down to the 14 best studies to get a super clear picture of what's really going on inside us when we do this conscious breathing stuff. And the results? Well, they were pretty remarkable. Check this out. Over a 6-month period, the group that practiced pranayama saw their resting heart rate drop by an average of 6.5 beats per minute. That's huge! Meanwhile, the control group, who didn't do the breathing exercises, their heart rate actually went up a bit. This proves it's not just a feeling of being calm. It's a real, measurable, physical change in your body. Okay, so that's the big question, right? What is actually happening here? What's the mechanism? How can something as simple as breathing have such a massive effect on our internal wiring?
Well, the answer is in something called our autonomic nervous system, or ANS. The easiest way to think about it is like your body's autopilot. You don't have to remember to make your heart beat or to digest your food. The ANS is the wizard behind the curtain, running the whole show without even thinking about it.
Now, this autopilot has two main modes. The sympathetic system, that's your fight or flight mode. It's what gets you revved up for action. Then there's the parasympathetic system, which is your rest and digest mode. It's what calms you down. The problem is, with modern chronic stress, a lot of us are stuck in fight or flight. But, and this is the amazing part, conscious breathing, pranayama, acts like a manual override. It lets you flip the switch and tell your body, hey, it's time to rest and digest.
All right, so we've seen just how powerful conscious breathing can be. But let's be honest, what about the other 99% of the time when we're not paying any attention to it at all? Well, it turns out our unconscious breathing habits have a surprisingly visible impact.
And a really big impact, it turns out. Poor unconscious habits, especially breathing through your mouth instead of your nose, are linked to a whole laundry list of physical issues. I mean, we're talking about crooked teeth, problems chewing, jaws that are out of proportion, stuff people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on orthodontics to fix, and it can all come from just an incorrect breathing pattern.
And if you want proof, just look at this. It's honestly stunning. On the left, you see the high, narrow palate of someone who is a habitual mouth breather. This makes your tongue rest on the bottom of your mouth. On the right, that is the exact same person after therapy that simply retrained their tongue to rest on the roof of their mouth. The bone, the actual bone, literally changed shape and got wider just from changing a tiny muscular habit.
This quote from way back in 1963 just nails it. The gentle but constant, relentless pressure from our muscles, like where your tongue rests, is a seriously powerful force. Over time, your bones will give in. They will adapt to it. So the takeaway here is your habits are quite literally shaping who you are.
So, think about that for a second. If a simple, unconscious habit can physically reshape our bones, that's a huge idea. And it kind of makes you wonder, right, if our physical body can be changed by our internal habits, what about our internal experience? Let's take a look at something we all know way too well, stress.
This is a pretty radical idea from the yogi and mystic Sadhguru. It completely reframes how we think about stress. We usually think of stress as something that happens to us, right? A stressful job, a stressful commute. But what he's saying is, no, stress isn't external at all. It's an internal thing.
It's a sign that we just haven't learned how to manage our own system, our body, our mind, our emotions.
You know, there's this great old story that illustrates this perfectly. So a traveler comes across a man who's just chipping away at a huge block of stone. He asks him, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" The guy looks up, totally annoyed, and grunts, "Are you blind? I'm cutting stone."
So the traveler walks a little further and sees a second stonecutter doing the exact same work. He asks him the same question, and this man says, "Oh, I'm doing this to earn a living so I can feed my family." A totally different perspective, right? More practical.
And then he comes to a third man who is working with this incredible energy. He's practically glowing with joy. The traveler asks him, "And what are you doing?" The man stands up tall, beaming, and declares, "I am building a beautiful temple." Now think about that. All three men are doing the exact same physical task, but their inner world, their experience of that task, completely, totally different. They didn't change the content of their work, they changed the context.
So what we have here is the modern science of breathing, the very real physical impact of our habits, and this completely new way of looking at stress. And what's so fascinating is how all of these modern discoveries are basically just echoing what ancient wisdom has been saying all along, that this is all one unified system.
This ancient way of seeing things kind of unfolds in 3 steps. Step 1 is what Sadhguru was talking about. You have to take responsibility for managing your own internal system. Once you do that, you get to step 2. You start to see that you're not just some isolated person, but you're part of a much bigger, interconnected reality. And from there, you naturally arrive at step 3. You realize that everything you do, your actions, your thoughts, your habits, they all have ripple effects that shape your life. That's basically the principle of karma.
Let's just look at 2 of these ancient perspectives really quick. In Vedanta philosophy, they say our individual self, what they call Atman, is actually a part of a single ultimate reality called Brahman. So this feeling we have of being separate from everything else, they say that's just an illusion. And then you have Ayurveda, the traditional Indian system of medicine. It's completely built on the idea that imbalances inside of you directly cause physical sickness. For instance, being chronically stressed can actually make your saliva more acidic, which then damages your teeth, messes up your digestion, and weakens your entire immune system. See, it's all connected.
Okay, so we've gone from breathing to bones to ancient philosophy. After exploring all of that, what's the big idea? What's the ultimate takeaway here?
Here's the most important point of all of this. Your breath, your habits, and your mindset are not separate things happening to you. They are the interconnected tools that you get to use to actively shape your reality. Your conscious breath directs your nervous system. Your unconscious habits shape your physical body. And your internal mindset, well, that defines your entire experience of the world. They are your tools, and they are yours to command.
So, the final thought I want to leave you with is this. If you really are the manager of your own internal system, if you're the one holding the controls to your breath, your habits, and your inner world, what's the first small change you're going to make?